It was a little after 2 in the morning when the first knock came. Not a polite tap, not a full fist pound, just a slow, deliberate knock. Knock that slid under the doorframe like a cold draft. I live in a single-story rental house on the edge of Maple Ridge, New Hampshire. Population, maybe 3,000. The kind of town where everyone swears they still leave their doors unlocked, though no one actually does anymore. My place is a converted lake cabin tucked between black pines and the frozen edge of Mirror Lake. In January, the snow piles chest high and the night is so silent you can hear the ice crack. That night I'd gone to bed late after a double shift at the diner. My dog, Clover, a mellow shepherd mix, had already curled up in the corner. I remember checking the clock, 2:14 a.m. glowing green on the nightstand. Then the knock started. Clover lifted her head and gave a low, guttural growl I'd never heard from her. I froze, heartbeat thudding. The front porch light was motion activated, but through the bedroom curtains I saw nothing. No shadow crossing, no crunch of boots in the snow. Another 3 knocks. Same pace. Knock, knock, knock. My first thought was a neighbor in trouble. Car accident, maybe a broken-down truck on the county road. But there'd been no headlights sweeping the windows. And who goes door to door in sub-zero wind chill? I slid out of bed, avoiding the creaky floorboard near the dresser, and padded to the window. The moon gave everything that strange blue-white glow. The porch looked empty, just the drift of snow against the steps. My phone sat charging on the nightstand. No missed calls, no texts. Reception out here is spotty, but I had 1 bar. I considered dialing 911, but it felt absurd. What would I even say? Somebody might be knocking, but I can't see them. Then, tap, tap, tap. This time on the bedroom window. I jumped back, a gasp catching in my throat. Clover was up now, hackles raised, a low snarl vibrating through her chest. I forced myself to look. Nothing. Just my own reflection and the thin frost on the glass. That was when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You left the porch light off. The words glowed on the screen like a burn. My porch light had a manual override, but I hadn't touched it. I flicked the hallway switch, and sure enough, the bulb was dark. Clover barked, sharp and loud. I grabbed the heavy mag light from the kitchen drawer and crept toward the door, every instinct screaming not to open it. I crouched to peek through the side window that faces the porch. That's when I saw the footprints. They led up the steps, single file, heavy prints in the fresh snow, and stopped right at the door. But there were no returning prints. Whoever it was hadn't walked away. I swallowed hard, trying to think. Maybe someone came by earlier. But it had been snowing steadily since midnight. These tracks were fresh. The phone buzzed again. It's cold. Let me in. My thumb hovered over the 911 icon when Clover suddenly went still. Ears flat, eyes locked on the living room ceiling. A faint scraping sound came from above, like something dragging across the roof. I gripped the flashlight tighter and flicked it toward the back door, half expecting to see it swing open. The scraping grew louder, a slow, deliberate shift of weight. Then a heavy thud, directly over my bedroom. Another text arrived. Nice dog. I felt the blood drain from my face. No one could see Clover from outside. The blinds were drawn. I killed the living room light, plunging the house into darkness except for the faint moonlight. Clover pressed against my leg, trembling. The roof creaked again. This time the sound moved toward the far end of the cabin, toward the old attic hatch above the hallway closet. I'd barely used it since moving in. The previous owner warned me it was drafty, said to keep it latched in winter. I forced myself down the hall, every step a drumbeat in my ears. The closet door stood ajar, just a finger's width. I hadn't left it that way. My phone vibrated one more time, almost warm enough. And then, silence. I held my breath, staring at the narrow gap of the closet door. The scraping had stopped, but the air felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. That's when Clover lunged forward and barked. an explosion of sound that echoed off the walls. Something above us answered with a sudden bang, like a body slamming against the attic floor. I flicked the mag light up. Dust sifted down from the hatch. And then, very slowly, the tiny metal latch began to turn. The attic latch stopped halfway, as if whoever or whatever was on the other side was listening for my reaction. Clover barked again, a furious echo that rattled the windows. "Stay," I whispered, though my own voice shook. The maglite beam quivered across the ceiling. Dust rained down in a slow drizzle. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the latch gave a final metallic click, and the hatch slid open an inch, exhaling a puff of icy air. I backed toward the front door, phone clenched so hard my knuckles ached. My thumb hovered over 911, but before I could press, the phone buzzed again. "Unknown number. Don't call them. You'll only make it worse." My stomach dropped. Whoever this was could see me. Clover growled, ears flat. She lunged at the hallway, teeth bared. A low scrape came from the attic, as if someone was dragging a heavy bag toward the opening. I finally hit the call button. The line clicked, then nothing. No dial tone, just a faint hiss, like static. Another buzz. I said no. The lights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the cabin. Only the thin beam of my flashlight remained. I forced a breath. "You're not welcome here." My voice cracked, but it was loud enough to echo off the walls. Silence. Then a slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap on the attic floor. 3 beats, perfectly spaced. Clover barked so hard she slid across the wood. I yanked the front door, but it wouldn't budge. The deadbolt spun uselessly. Frozen. Something above shifted again, then a sharp metallic clang. My flashlight caught a glint of steel tumbling through the open hatch, a rusted carpenter's hammer, landing with a heavy thud inches from my feet. The phone buzzed. "Let's see if you can climb." A surge of adrenaline cut through my fear. I darted to the kitchen, yanked the back door, locked. I grabbed the largest knife from the block and turned back toward the hallway. That's when Clover stopped barking. She stared upward, body rigid. A low creak followed, like someone lowering a foot onto the hallway shelf. I aimed the flashlight. A shape leaned halfway out of the attic. Tall, thin, face hidden beneath a gray ski mask, eyes black and flat. He dropped. The impact shook the floorboards. Clover lunged, teeth snapping. I slashed with the knife, grazing his coat. He stumbled, but his gloved hand clamped around my wrist, icy and strong. "Leave!" I shouted, ramming the flashlight into his shoulder. He hissed and shoved me hard. My back slammed into the wall. Clover bit down on his calf. He howled, a raw animal sound, and kicked her off. In the scramble, the knife skittered across the floor. The intruder bolted for the back door. I grabbed the maglite and swung with everything I had. The metal connected with a sickening crack. He staggered but kept moving, yanking the door handle that moments ago had been frozen. It swung open effortlessly. Snow gusted inside. He disappeared into the blizzard without a word. I slammed the door and locked it, heart hammering. The house was silent except for Clover's heavy breathing. Then my phone buzzed one last time. "Next time, don't keep me waiting." The state police arrived 20 minutes later, long enough for the tracks to half fill with snow. They followed the footprints across my yard to the tree line, then lost them where the wind had drifted fresh powder. There were no other clues, no fingerprints. The attic hatch showed no signs of forced entry. The number that had texted me was untraceable, a prepaid SIM, probably tossed by morning. The officer suggested maybe it was someone I knew, someone playing a sick prank, but he couldn't explain the deadbolt freezing, the lights cutting out, or how the back door locked for me but not for him. I changed every lock the next day, installed motion cameras, reinforced the attic. Still, for weeks, I woke at 2:14 a.m. on the dot, heart pounding, certain I'd hear that knock again. It's been months now. I've moved towns, even changed numbers, but last night, just before 2 in the morning, my new phone buzzed. No caller ID, just 3 words. "Cold again tonight." I left Boston late, long after I'd promised. My sister's birthday dinner had stretched past midnight, and I still had a 4-hour drive back to Burlington. The February sky was moonless, the interstate a ribbon of black ice and salt mist. By 2:30 a.m., the caffeine from my last gas station coffee had worn off. I needed a break. A blue sign promised a rest stop 5 miles ahead. Perfect. Stretch, splash water on my face, maybe grab another coffee from the vending machine. The exit ramp curved into a wooded hollow. The place looked deserted, a single low building with pale brick walls, 2 flickering lamps over the doors, but every light inside blazed like noon. I pulled in beside a lone sedan coated with road grime, no plates on the front bumper. The lot was silent except for the tick of my cooling engine. No trucks idling, no other travelers. I figured the maintenance crew must have left the lights on. Inside, the air smelled faintly of bleach and wet concrete. The vending machines hummed. A janitor's mop bucket sat by the wall, half full of gray water. "Hello?" My voice bounced off the tile. Nothing. I ducked into the men's room, washed my face, let the cold water shock me awake. When I came out, the sedan in the lot was gone. I stopped short. I hadn't heard an engine start, no tires on gravel, nothing. Uneasy now, I stepped to the window. The lot lay empty except for my own car and a thin crust of fresh snow. No tracks led to the exit. The fluorescent lights above me buzzed louder. A rhythmic click, click, click started somewhere down the hall, like a chain hitting metal. "Maintenance?" I called again. Silence. I turned to leave and froze. Every vending machine screen had gone black. The soda machine's bright display was dark, the snack machine too, but the overhead lights still blazed, humming like a hive. My phone read 2:47 a.m. I hurried outside, boots crunching on the thin snow. My breath plumed white in the sharp air. That's when I saw the footprints. They circled my car in a wide loop. Boot prints, large, crisp. I'd been inside less than 5 minutes. I scanned the lot. Empty. Trees loomed black against the sky. A metallic squeal cut through the night, slow and deliberate, like a door hinge turned from deep inside the building. I told myself to get in the car, lock it, drive. Instead, I glanced back. Through the glass entryway, the lights inside now pulsed, dim, bright dim, like a slow heartbeat. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You forgot to pay." I jumped. The screen flickered, then went blank. Dead battery, though it had been at 60%. A faint shuffle came from behind the building. I gripped my keys, heart hammering. "Hello? Who's there?" No answer, only the wind sighing through the pines. Then, slowly, the rest stop lights began to shut off one by one. Click, click, click. Each plunge into darkness, moving toward the glass doors. I lunged into my car, slammed the locks. The key fob light didn't blink. Engine wouldn't start. Nothing. Through the windshield, I watched the final light die, leaving the building a black silhouette against the snow. The parking lot lamps flickered once and stayed on, casting long, thin shadows across the pavement. And in the sudden silence, I heard footsteps approaching, measured, deliberate, crunching the snow from the far side of the lot. The footsteps stopped somewhere beyond the reach of the parking lot lamps. I squinted through the windshield, but the darkness past the last cone of light was absolute. No figure, no movement, just the sound of slow breathing, or maybe the wind pretending to breathe. "Come on, start," I muttered, twisting the key again. The engine stayed dead, not even a click. My dashboard clock, which had been glowing 2:53 a minute ago, was blank. I fumbled for the flashlight I keep in the glove box. It sputtered once, then went dark. Batteries were fresh that morning. Something scraped along the passenger side door, a sharp shk like a key dragged across metal. Cursing, I jabbed the power lock button even though I'd already locked it. The scrape continued toward the back bumper, slow and deliberate. Then silence. I forced myself to glance at the side mirror. A face stared back, pale, distorted by the convex glass. No eyes, just the slick shape of a human head inches from the car. I jerked upright, heart hammering, and the mirror showed only the empty lot. A low chuckle floated through the cold. Male, raspy, right outside the driver's window. I didn't dare look. Instead, I dug for my phone again, willing it to wake. The screen stayed black, but the haptic buzz vibrated in my palm. 3 short pulses like someone knocking. Another scrape, this time across the roof. Then the car shifted, a faint rock as though a heavy weight had settled on top. Enough. I yanked the door handle and bolted. The night air knifed my lungs. I sprinted toward the main highway, boots sliding on the thin crust of snow. Behind me came a single thud, as if something large had jumped from the car to the ground. I didn't look back. The ramp stretched longer than I remembered. My breath roared in my ears, drowning everything, until a new sound cut through. A deep humming, mechanical and rising in pitch. The lights of the rest stop flared behind me all at once, bright as a stadium. I risked a glance. The building glowed white, every bulb blazing, but the lot was empty. My car gone. No shadow, no scrape in the snow where it had been. The hum swelled until it vibrated in my teeth. I covered my ears, stumbled forward. Then a horn blared, a tractor trailer barreling down the interstate. I flung myself into the breakdown lane as the driver laid on the brakes, air brakes hissing. He leaned from the cab, shouting. I barely heard. When he finally understood I was stranded, he helped me climb aboard. From the cab, I looked back toward the rest stop. Nothing, just dark trees and an unlit building that might have been abandoned for years. Aftermath. State troopers found no sign of my car. Not stolen, missing. The VIN never flagged. They said I must have misread the mile marker, that I'd pulled off at a different exit and panicked when the engine died. But they couldn't explain the deep gouge down the length of my coat sleeve, or why the trucker swore he'd seen me running from a pitch-black forest, not a lit facility. 2 nights later, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject, no body, just a single attachment, a photograph of my car, perfectly centered under glaring fluorescent lights. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m., the minute my phone died. I'd only been in the building a week when the messages started. I'd moved to Albany for a new job, short on cash, and found a 1-bedroom sublet in an aging brick walk-up. The place was fine, creaky floors, peeling paint, but cheap and 5 minutes from the bus line. Apartment 3B sat at the far end of a narrow hall. Only 3 other units were occupied, all by quiet older tenants who kept their doors locked and conversations short. My first night, the radiator clanged like it was full of hammers. By the third, I was used to the noises. What I wasn't used to was the note slipped under my door. Nice choice. Hope you like staying up late. No name, no handwriting I recognized, just block letters drawn with a thick black marker. I assumed it was a prank. Maybe the landlord's kid. I tossed it, double-checked the deadbolt, and went to bed. 2 nights later, my phone rang at 1:11 a.m. The screen said, "Unknown." I answered, groggy. A whisper slid through the line. "You shouldn't be in 3B." Then a click. I stayed awake till dawn, lights on, ears straining for footsteps in the hall. None came. The next morning I found a second note, this one taped to the inside of my peephole, inside. It read, "Keys are easy." I demanded a new lock from the landlord. He swore no one but me and his office had a copy. The maintenance man, an older guy named Russ, replaced the deadbolt while I watched. "Somebody's screwing with you," he muttered, shaking his head. "These old halls carry sound. You'd hear if anyone was picking a lock." That night, I shoved a chair under the knob and tried to sleep. At 2:14 a.m., the bathroom light flicked on. I heard the click, clear as a gunshot. I grabbed the heavy flashlight I kept by the bed and crept to the doorway. The light blazed, reflecting off the foggy mirror, but the switch was still off. The mirror surface pulsed faintly, like a phone screen. Condensation spelled out a word in dripping letters, "Leave." I wiped it with my sleeve. It smeared like regular steam. But the room was ice cold. No shower run, no humidity. The instant I stepped back into the hall, the light died. I slept in my clothes on the couch, heart hammering until sunrise. The next day I knocked on every door. The couple in 3A said they hadn't heard a thing. The old woman in 2C blinked at me like I'd woken her from a dream. Only the guy in 4B, a tall grad student named Ian, seemed interested. 3B, huh? He said, leaning on the doorframe. Weird stuff always happens there. Last tenant broke his lease after a week. Said he kept smelling smoke. Did he ever see anyone? Ian shrugged. Not that I know. Place has a rep, though. People say a squatter used to hide in the crawl space years back. Cops never found proof. I wanted to laugh it off, but something in his tone made my skin crawl. That evening, wind rattled the windows and snow started falling. I cooked pasta, trying to drown the unease with garlic and radio chatter. Around midnight, a faint scratching started behind the kitchen wall. Not mice, too heavy. It traveled upward, pausing above the ceiling, then along the hallway toward the bedroom. Clover fast, deliberate. I killed the lights, heart racing. The scratching stopped. Then, from the other side of my locked bedroom door, came 3 slow knocks. I nearly called 911, but what would I say? That someone had somehow gotten inside without opening a door. I stayed frozen on the couch until the faint gray of morning filtered through the curtains. Saturday night, a blizzard hit. I planned to hole up with movies, but around 9 p.m., the power flickered and died. Emergency lights glowed faint red along the hallway. I decided to head downstairs to see if the landlord's office had heat, or at least a working outlet for my phone. The elevator creaked like always as I stepped in. The doors closed. The panel lights blinked out. The car dropped 1 floor with a jolt and stopped. Pitch black. Then a soft breath against my ear. I spun, flashlight trembling. No one. The elevator shuddered, then began to descend slowly, without buttons pressed. Down. Past the lobby. Into sublevels I didn't know existed. B1, B2, B3. The doors opened onto a hallway of raw concrete and old steam pipes. The air smelled of wet metal and something sweet, like rotting fruit. At the far end, a single bare bulb flickered over a door marked 3B. My own apartment number. I stepped back, heart pounding. The elevator doors began to close. I lunged forward and hit the door open button. Nothing. The doors slid shut and the car lurched upward on its own. When it opened again, I was back on my floor. But the hallway was dark, every apartment door standing wide, including mine. Inside my unit, the lights blazed. My belongings, coat, dishes, suitcase, were arranged in perfect circles on the floor, each item centered on a chalk outline I hadn't drawn. And on the wall above the couch, written in thick black marker, "Welcome home." My phone vibrated. The screen, dead all night, lit with a single text from an unknown number. "Basement. Now." I ran. The stairwell felt endless. The basement door yawned open, a stale draft rushing up. I descended into shadows until I reached the same hallway I'd seen from the elevator. The door labeled 3B waited at the end. Behind it, a faint humming, low and steady, like someone breathing through a wall. I should have turned and left. Instead, I reached for the knob. It turned easily. The room beyond was small, walls lined with yellowing newspaper. A single folding chair sat in the center, a phone resting on the seat. The screen glowed. My own face stared back from the camera app, live feed. Then the door slammed behind me. The phone buzzed in my hand, though I hadn't touched it. A whisper slid from the speaker. "Stay as long as you like." The overhead bulb popped, plunging the room into total black. I don't remember leaving. Somehow I ended up outside in the snow, breath steaming in the dawn. My apartment keys were still in my pocket, though I never recall locking the basement door. When I returned to 3B later that morning, everything was exactly as before. Furniture normal, no writing on the wall, no circles on the floor. Even the landlord's spare key showed no signs of use. I broke my lease that day. Ian from 4B helped me move out. "Happens every time," he muttered when I told him what I'd seen. That night, in a hotel miles away, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. Unknown number, one new text. "Welcome back to 3B."